Greetings, fellow classic TV fans, and welcome to the Golden Rage of TV Live. I'm your host, Pat McCormack, and here we like to take a fond look back at some of our classic television favorites, sort of a dose of nostalgic nourishment, if you will, and an escape, too. I think we all could use something like that right about now. So we're going to get to it, though. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have Dave Sundstrom here. He's going to join me in a minute or so, a couple minutes. There's a couple of things, though, that I wanted to get by quickly. And that is specifically that my good friend, Jerry Mathers, is headed out on the personal appearance circuit again. Now, here it has him with Tony, pictured with Tony Dow, saying that they're going to be at the Classic Rewind weekend. That's June 24th and through the 26th. I think Tony's going to be there. My understanding he's doing much better, so I'm hoping that he's out there meeting his fans, because that's got to be good for you no matter what. One more appearance that Jerry's doing that I'm really excited about, because it's in my neck of the woods, is the Contra Costa Con 4, which is July 17th. So if you're in the Bay Area, you come out and meet Jerry. And as you can see, John Provost will be there too. And he's a great guy to hang out with. So yeah, that will be a lot of fun. And so yeah, join us, or join Jerry. I'll be there too, just kind of floating around. So I'm going to play around with my nice little overlay, that subliminal messages here saying, yeah, you can go ahead and follow those if you like. Before we go on a somber note, I want to give a shout out to our friend Ian Carlin, who you would know as ENC from the channel Retro Serial, which is great, folks. If you don't know Retro Serial, definitely find it, subscribe, like. His wife lost her battle with cancer last night, and I just want to let Ian know that we're all thinking of him. He's a great community member. We're in your corner, Ian, and hopefully you'll get through this tough time fast. So with that, and again, he does really good stuff on the Retro Serial channel. And speaking of good stuff, I think I'm just going to get right into bringing my guest on here. Good stuff. That's kind of a catchphrase, isn't it? I've heard it before. I've heard it before because it is the catchphrase of Mr. Dave Sundstrom. There he is.
Hey, how's it going, Pat?
It's going good, Dave. How are things in your Utah neck of the woods?
Fairly good, fairly good. You already covered the tough news that we got this morning, and I had a chance to visit with Ian, and I know a lot of folks are worried about him, and I know he appreciates that. He appreciates the concern, the kind thoughts, all of that stuff. He'll get through it. Yeah, he's been working through this for a while now.
Yeah, and such a great supporter of me and you, and
for sure.
Yeah, it's well, we're not getting any younger, I don't think, Dave.
That's right. Now, I know Ian would want us to continue on with the show, though. That's what Ian would tell us to do.
Absolutely. And I'm confident he's going to be back soon, too.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about, Dave?
Well, I think we've got a couple of fine individuals that we're going to spotlight tonight, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering, does this give it away? Well, I guess in some ways.
In some ways, yeah.
So here's the story. No pun intended. I found some, I don't want to call it lost videos, because they actually had been aired during the original Voiceover Actors Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which I had the pleasure to co-host with my friend Derek Zemrak, a name that your followers might find familiar, Dave, who we went up and saw at the Orinda Theater for the CroftCon. That was a major success. And, he had me in 2020 help him do the first annual we called it annual, probably should be just the first ever Voiceover Actors Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And it was a lot of fun. It was a bit chaotic because we were going live and, we didn't have a chance to do a dry run. So the one thing that I do know that worked was the, what do I call them? The retro, well, it's the retro TV trivia episodes that I made for the event. CT, of course, Christian Taylor helped me on this masterful editing, but they only showed once there. And as I'm going through my hard drives, of which I have way too many, it's like, okay, what's this? And hey, I forgot about those. And basically what I did was a segment on each one of the inductees. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to keep kind of bringing these videos out of the vault, so to speak, and playing them along with the live stream. I have it in my mind.
I'm glad you're doing it, Pat, because I mean, I know they're not new to you, but I guarantee you they're new to me and every single person that is on the live stream with us tonight.
Absolutely. Never before seen on at least the Golden Rage of TV channel. So yeah, I'm going with that. Long lost discovery. Where's Geraldo Rivera when you need him? Yeah.
Well, no, Geraldo would never, he came up empty. You've got true treasures here.
Isn't that shocking? Poor guy. Poor guy. Well, I want everybody to know I see them. Here's our buddy, Steve from Life and Sand Ending. He was promoting my channel and it gave my numbers a bump. Well, guess what? It did, Steve. Thank you. I was wondering where that came from. It certainly wasn't from Dave.
No.
Oh. No, Dave's been such a great help. Mel Blanc, Tweaky on Buck Rogers.
He's kind of beating us to the punch. We'll get to it. Jeez,
I haven't gotten there yet. I know. I'm trying to hit all these. Well, I need to just kind of calm down on my comments and get back to the deal. Oh, I got to calm down on my comments, which means calm down. Okay. So again, I found these videos and I just gave it up. One is of Mel Blanc, and the other is June Foray. Two titans of voiceover acting. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I totally would. It's interesting as I was researching Barry's going to, never mind. I'm going to let you read it later on. Barry just shared it in the chat, but there's a great quote that Mel Blanc has about June Foray, and it's so true, so very true.
Yeah, I was amazed that those two. Actually, I was curious. Did they ever work together? And the fact is, they did.
Yeah, they worked on a lot of the Merry Melodies stuff, right? Mm-hmm. The Looney Tunes.
You see anything with Witch Hazel and Bugs Bunny, they're working together. But the one that surprised me, Dave, was. And that I didn't know was that she had auditioned to be Betty Rubble.
Yeah. And of course it went to be Benaderet, but and she was heartbroken from what I understand.
Well, I wouldn't have changed that.
No,
actually, because she nailed that role. But it would have been interesting because then, Bugs Bunny and Witch Hazel would have been working together again, but on the Flintstones. And of course she would have done a great job at that. So I could talk about these two into the dirt, but what I want to do is just start by airing this Mel Blanc.
That's what I'm here for, Pat. I'm so excited to see these things.
Let's do it, okay? Take it away, Mr. Screen Man. When I heard it said that Mel Blanc had the ability to animate characters in 3 dimensions with simply his voice, I thought to myself, now that's the perfect description. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, Mel admittedly struggled in school. One teacher even telling him that Blanc was the perfect last name, as based on his grades, he would never amount to anything. But he knew better. Realizing early on he was destined to become an entertainer, Blanc said he capitalized on his grade school years by developing many of his vocal bits in the cavernous hallways. Setting his sights on music, the so-called underachiever became so accomplished that by his late teens he was done with school and out conducting orchestras. This became an opportunity for him to develop his comedic skills by working his skits in between the songs. Once permanently relocated to Los Angeles, Mel pounded the pavement and knocked on many doors. Feeling that Warner Brothers specifically could use his help, he tirelessly, and to use Mel's words, stubbornly attempted to get an audition there. Every 2 weeks, Mel would come, and every 2 weeks, he would be turned away. After a couple of years of this, a fateful break got his foot in the door, and his raw talent burst it wide open. He immediately captured the attention of the directors and character creators, and the rest is Looney Tunes history. In his first starring role, Mel brought us Porky Pig, while at the same time inspiring the soon-to-be popular Daffy Duck. At the time of this debut, I'm guessing Mel never dreamed his voice work at Warner Brothers would continue for up to 20 years. He not only voiced the bulk of their characters, but more notably, every single one of their Oscar winners. Those included Tweety Pie in 1947.
I thought I saw a putty cat. I did saw a putty cat.
My personal favorite, Pepe Le Pew in 1949's For Sentimental Reasons.
My little darling, it is love at first sight, is it not? No?
Speedy Gonzales in 1956.
For you, senors and senoritas, there is plenty more where this cheese come from. Epa, 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 epa.
Tweety again in Birds Anonymous in 57.
Uh-oh, here we go again.
And what became the most well-known Looney Tune character ever, Bugs Bunny in 1958's Nighty Night Bugs.
Dragons is so stupid.
Adios, have a nice trip. Bon voyage, farewell to thee.
Some folks don't know that in 1940, Fritz Lansing also hired Mel to become the voice of yet another soon-to-be classic cartoon character, Woody Woodpecker.
Guess who?
In the early 60s, Hanna-Barbera cast Blanc in two of their primetime classic TV cartoons, The Flintstones as Barney Rubble.
Oh, gee. If I'd have known that's all there was to getting a baby, I'd have wished on a fallen star long ago.
And The Jetsons, with him as the voice of Mr. Spacely.
Don't be funny, Jetson. You're going to be the assistant to the judge. I am the judge.
With his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his radio work with Burns and Allen, Jack Benny, and others, it was Mel Blanc's contribution to the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes, which is his lasting legacy, and as the voice of Bugs Bunny, who became the most viewed cartoon character in animation history.
Ain't it the truth? there's few. Well, I think we're talking about the two probably biggest giants in animation ever tonight.
Well, as far as voiceover actors go, they were some of the titans, and I mean, Mel. My question, Dave, is for how many years did you mispronounce his last name?
Blanc?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's spelled Blanc.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a fine wine. I'm thinking, well, that must be since I'm into making sure that I read things properly. My understanding is that he had a K on it, but he took that off.
Oh, really?
Just to confuse me.
I think I had the advantage of not knowing who he really was, enjoying his work, but not knowing who he was until I was probably my Buck Rogers watching phase. And at that point I heard someone pronounce his name, so I knew how it was pronounced. But you're right, you would think that the way it's spelled there, it would be Blanc, but it's not.
Well, that's true. And again, what really impressed me, and as I learned, as we do these things, Dave, one of the fun aspects of it is that we're learning it.
We sure are.
We're not walking dictionaries. I mean, encyclopedias. Dave might be, but I'm.
No.
I
literally had to take down entire videos because I've pronounced whoever I'm spotlighting, Mino Peluche. I called him Mino Peluche the whole video until someone corrected me and I looked it up and holy cow. So I had to redo the whole video. It happens all the time.
Poor Wesley Uri.
Yeah. Poor Wesley Uri. I think I corrected you. I think I told you it was Uri.
Well, and it was like, okay, I'll go with that. Till I asked him point blank, is it Uri or your? He said, oh, it's your. And I said, well, okay. I dodged that bullet. But again, back to Mel. I was so impressed to find out that he was an orchestra leader. obviously, you get to that. To be the leader of the band takes a lot of skill, a lot of know-how. You need to not only be a good musician, you need to know how to speak music to everyone that plays a different sort of instrument. So he had that as I don't want to call it a hidden talent, because I think that was the aspect he was performing, which gave him a chance to run the routines, probably because he was the only one with a vocal mic. So I'm guessing it was instrumental. But and watching that, I was like, okay, what must it have been like going to school with Mel Blanc?
Yeah, it's one has to wonder if he was like that, coming up with all sorts of fun impressions and sounds and vocals, or his whole life, or was he one of those guys that you hear about those people that save it for the screen and they're very kind of quiet and unassuming off screen.
Right, and from what I learned, I don't think that was Mel. I think he was like, any chance I get to practice this. And I've done this where, the hallways at schools have that perfect, just like a parking garage, they have that perfect amount of reverb to practice your. I just thought, what would it have been like walking down the hallways hearing Woody Woodpecker behind you? It's like, later in the years, his classmates would hear that probably and go, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
But of course, he had so many voices. It was the man of 1,000 voices, right? That's his nickname. I think it's also Paul Frees's nickname too. Yeah. But
the thing is I think we've all, I think we'd be shocked if we knew exactly how much over the course of our lives we've heard Mel, whether it's been on commercials, cartoons, or, television shows.
Right. Right. I never put 2 and 2 together with Barney Rubble because it made no sense to me whatsoever until I went back and started watching old Looney Tunes cartoons and going, oh my gosh, there's Barney Rubble. That's amazing. He gets around. But again, the classic story of show business, denial, turn down, and stubbornness on his part to break through and become one of the best voice actors ever. I think also one of the things that I learned studying these people was they were tremendously talented actors.
Right.
It wasn't just that they read the script and made funny sounds with their voices, which of course they were all great at, Mel especially. But it was that, and as I said in that quote in the beginning, that he could literally paint his characters in 3 dimensions.
Yeah. And the thing about voice acting work, and having never done it, but having heard people speak about it is it's very different than acting. Right. There's an extra step in that everything kind of has to be projected and exaggerated a little bit for effect.
Right.
And it's not something that everyone can do. And the truly greats are few and far between.
Yeah, I would agree. And of course, many of his best characters were not too few and far between. There were just tons of them. But I got to ask you, Dave. I'm going to go over the comments. I'm asking you guys too to see who was your favorite Mel Blanc character.
And it's not fair because it would be, there's 2, right? Let's go live action and animated. But my favorite of all is Buck Rogers' little buddy Tweaky, which the reason, people will say, well, he didn't do much on that show. He came up with the little beep or whatever that, however, beep. Hey, Buck, right. That kind of stuff. But the minute he was gone, he fell ill. And the second season was missing for a lot of the season. And they had someone else come in and do the work. And for whatever reason, he didn't try to sound like Mel Blanc at all. And it was when he was gone, when someone else was doing the work, it became how important Mel Blanc was to that character, to bringing that character to life, because something just felt off. Now,
Right.
when it comes to animation, I got to go with Bugs Bunny. I loved Bugs Bunny. I mean,
Yeah.
that character for me was, of all of the Looney Tunes, and I think I'm not probably alone here, I just loved that wise guy rabbit that always got the best of Fudd and anybody else that got in his way. I love those cartoons. We would watch them as we got ready for school. In the mornings, they'd play them on one of the local TV stations. And I swear that there were more than a handful of times I missed the bus because I just couldn't bear the thought of missing the cartoon. And I'd miss the bus, and my mom would be mad because she'd have to run me to school instead of taking the bus. But I love Bugs Bunny as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was fortunate that they played him in the afternoon here in California. So it was an after school experience for me, with specifically 8 Oreo cookies and a glass of milk. It had to be 8.
That's the right number. That's the right number. Yeah.
So, every time I saw that it was indeed a Bugs Bunny episode, I lit up, because you just love them. You love every one of them and the characters that, he plays off of. But when it comes to my favorite, I must say,
he's been canceled, Pat. You've got to pick another one.
Me too? Oh, I'm not going there. I just want to say,
they took him out of Space Jam too, right? You were aware of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is a bit of a flirt.
He is a big flirt.
My favorite line is, "I will be your peanut and you will be my brittle." And of course, lay before everything. Even the lay before the Tarzan yell, lay. Oh, I mean, that's, again, Blanc had to be ad-libbing so much of that. And I'm sure it was scripted, but I would have, to be a fly on the wall.
To a point, but right. I think those voice actors did add a lot of themselves and to their performances.
Right. And to be a fly on the wall for that would have been
what a treat that would have been, for sure.
At the inaugural voiceover at the Hall of Fame, his son, Mel Blanc Jr., actually got on the phone with us and talked about his dad and why not? I mean, it was just so much to say about how incredible he was. And even then, you couldn't cover it all. So it was like, man, maybe we should have thinned out the inductees a little bit, because we had 6.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you covered them. Even in the space of 2 hours, it'd be difficult to do them all justice. Now, speaking of Mel Blanc Jr. or his son, I don't know if he's junior.
Right.
I believe that I was reading an article that Mel got hurt in the early 60s, Dead Man's Curve in California, and got in an auto accident. And that his son, that feller, did a little bit of undercover vocal work subbing for his dad, unbeknownst to anyone. So he has some of his father's vocal chops, maybe not all, but some.
Yeah, who else would you go to? Someone that's genetically made up to be Bugs Bunny,
right?
And of course, there isn't a character I didn't love. Sylvester, of course, was a surprise to me that he was the winningest as far as the Academy Awards go that they earned, because of course these were made for the movie houses. That's how they started. They weren't made for television, which again was why the quality was always superior. And I put a poll up on who you like better, Warner Brothers or Hanna-Barbera. And so as I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, these are TV people. They're gonna say Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah. And
I got it. It made all the sense in the world just by the sheer bulk of material that they pumped out. But I was like, that's going to be a tough question.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fair question. As I think about it, having to choose between the two, it's kind of like picking between McDonald's and Wendy's. There are moments when I want McDonald's, and there's moments when I want Wendy's, and it's not that one's actually better than the other. It's just they're different, and they definitely were. And of course, Mel worked for both, right?
Right. Yeah. And again, they seem to make the rounds. Our next guest, I should say, our next honoree did as well. Very much so.
Oh yeah.
Which I think I'll just let that lead me into this lovely lady. And she was, Dave, she was beautiful.
A beauty.
And all the way through her life, beautiful. This one, matter of fact, I just got sent to me by Mr. Barry King. And there she is with her, with her little character that is probably the most prominent that she'd ever done. And looking great. I'm going to let this play because I don't want to give up too much of what I already know about her, which is a lot. So here we go. Ready? This guy again. The Oscar-winning icon Chuck Jones thought so much of his voice actress colleague that he's quoted as saying, "June Foray isn't the female Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc is the male June Foray." Like Mel, she knew she was destined to entertain at a very young age. Her on-the-air voice career began at age 12, and within just a couple of years, June was working steadily. Beginning on radio shows in the late 1940s and well into the 50s, she was a familiar voice on the Buster Brown program, the Jimmy Durante Show, Amos and Andy, the Stan Freberg Show, and that's just to name a few. In 1950, June gave the evil cat voice to Lucifer in the Walt Disney masterpiece Cinderella. And in '53, she was the voice of one of the jealous mermaids in Peter Pan. During this time, Foray began to work with Jones at Warner Brothers, initially serving as a replacement for the voices of Tweety Bird's Granny.
I think some local was playing a prank on us. Well, we'll just stay here tonight and have a nice rest.
And the Disney Warner crossover character, Witch Hazel.
What can a kindly, harmless old mother-type lady like me do for you?
But perhaps June's most recognizable role came in the early 60s as Bullwinkle's trusty sidekick, Rocky the Flying Squirrel.
Wrong hat!
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
And at the same time, voicing Boris Badenov's partner in crime, Natasha Fatale.
Think, darling, think. There must be something really rotten we can do today.
As part of her vast array of work, she also voiced one of Mattel's toy dolls called Chatty Cathy. Reportedly, this paved the way for her to play the role of the dreaded Talkie Tina in the classic episode of The Twilight Zone titled Living Doll.
My name is Talkie Tina, and I'm beginning to hate you.
In 1968 and '69, Foray immortalized her voice yet again as Cindy Lou Who and my first cartoon crush, Karen, in the holiday specials How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Frosty the Snowman. On yet another one of her memorable Chuck Jones animated specials, June voiced all the female characters in 1975's Rikki Tikki Tavi, which included the villainous Cobra.
We again will be king and queen of the garden, as soon as our eggs in the melon bed hatch.
But June Foray's vast amount of voice acting wasn't all she achieved on behalf of the animated entertainment industry. As a member of ASIFA Hollywood, in 1972 she founded the Annie Awards, recognizing all the various roles in animated productions, which of course includes outstanding voice acting. And in the year 2000, she once again reprised her role of Rocket J. Squirrel in the feature film adaptation.
Rocky, you okay?
Just out of practice.
As she continued on with her voice work well into her 90s, we were all witness to what was nearly a century of contributions, talent, and achievements for the world of animation by the great June Foray. Okay, so we're going to talk about June Foray, but I wanted to do something really quick. I want to thank John for pointing out that Mel's son is Noel. At least I got the last name right. Yeah, that's my excuse. But again, what a huge amount of talent, all packed up in a very tiny package. You know, she was not a big lady, but boy, the body of work is immense.
Yeah, the only person that even compares is Mel, who we were talking about, and but they're different. They're different. A lot of when I think about her characters, Rikki Tikki Tavi aside,
Yeah.
which I hated that show. I think I've only watched that once. I did not like it.
I like that.
Not a fan. It's just because I thought it was a little scary. But and talking Tina aside as well, because that in itself was a little bit nutty. But
Oh yeah.
her characters were they were less wiseacre, more genuine and earnest. In particular, Rocket J Squirrel, right? I mean, that character. I've attached so many different memories to television shows and cartoon characters, and for me, watching the Rocky and Bullwinkle show was Sunday mornings. We were getting ready, we'd go to church, and that whole mad rush to get on your church clothes and get some breakfast was also always accompanied by Rocky and Bullwinkle and fractured fairy tales and all of the wonderful things that came with those J. Ward animated shows that seem to be, at least locally here, on Sunday mornings. And top of the list was, of course, Rocky. I loved Rocky. I loved that little character. And the way she voiced him was just, it would be easy to go different, do it in a different way. But that was a character that young kids could really connect with.
Well, and I think, I like my little transparent background there. I think that she may have been the trailblazer for female voiceover actors, period, but also to take on the roles of kids, or in Rocky's case, and I thought in a few others, a young boy.
Yeah, I think Nancy Cartwright owes a ton to June.
It's true. She cites, well, it's funny. In a future one, Dawes Butler was an inductee. And Nancy, I don't think she joined us, but she sent in a few, I think she sent in something regarding Dawes, how he was a huge influence on her specifically. But, June, again, I loved her in just about everything she did. But like you, it was definitely Rocky. I mean, the fact that into her 90s, she could reprise that role on cue. And you probably have too, but I've seen interviews with her where they'll just say, can you do Rocky for us? Never got tired of it. She did it. It was awesome. Whereas Mel's probably like, okay, somebody asks me to do Porky Pig one more time. One more time. But, she really owned that role. Another one that I discovered later on that she wasn't aware of, was as Nell on Dudley Do Right. She could also do the very feminine voice too. She could cover that little kid sound, and then
do it all.
The damsel in distress, no problem.
Yeah.
But oh man, what a life! I think I'm pretty sure, as part of that induction ceremony, I know we did have Debbie Derryberry come on and speak. And I believe it was about June in that case. And you guys would recognize her from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And what else did she do? I'm losing it. Can't remember her main role. Oh, where is it? Well,
they'll help us in the chat. Someone will know.
Okay, but then there was this girl, Tara Strong.
Oh, Tara Strong, yes.
She was there. And it's funny, Derek and I were hosting this live, and she was on screen, and we both just completely lost track of what we were saying. I don't know why.
It's hard. I don't know what was going on, why you would be distracted. Yeah.
She is shockingly beautiful. Yeah. I mean, you never would picture that as the voice of, Timmy Turner. But, Debbie Derryberry was Jimmy Neutron.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. And you could hear that, again, with a lot of these folks, you could hear it in their voices. It's like, that's who they played. And so it kind of made sense. And again, this event, I'm told, will be repeated. I think Derek told me late summer, maybe sometime in the fall. Now you can't quote me on that, but of course we just saw him a couple weeks back, and I said, hey, it was funny because Dave and I were the only ones cruising through the Orinda Theater, going in every nook and cranny, probably places that we should not have been, looking for the voiceover actors Hall of Fame. It's here. I said, Dave, it's here. I know it is. And boy, we found some really interesting nooks and
That's a pretty cool theater.
Amazing. So that part of it, the adventure was great, only to find out, oh, we had to store that because of this event. It's usually right here on the main floor. I know that he had some big time artist, I can't remember his name, but they made figurines kind of as the tribute to each one of the actors. And he also has like original film cells from the cartoons themselves. And so if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, for one, you just got to go see the Orinda Theater based on what we experienced. It's incredible.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's a beautiful theater. It's sad. I mean, I get why we have multiplexes and they serve a need, but it breaks my heart to think that there aren't more theaters like the Orinda Theater out there.
Isn't it true? And that there were so many.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, well, good for you, Mr. Zemrak, for keeping that feeling alive. And, you know, housing that awards facility there specifically. And, I did want to mention one other thing, that June was also, I don't know if she was fully responsible, but had a hand in it. And that was the creation of this, which is the Annie Award. The Annie Awards are the awards given out to animation experts in all portions of the field, including actors. And I thought it was awesome that she was a part of that. It was really, again, another thing to hang her hat on. And boy, what a life. 99 years. Amazing.
Yeah. Hey, I have to say, Pat, you mentioned in the video, I think it was, that June voiced one of your first crushes, animated crushes, which is the young girl. I can't remember her name on Frosty the Snowman, but we have that in common. You know, I don't know what it is about that little girl on that show.
Karen is her name.
Was Karen. Well, that's
I know her as Karen. I know her as Karen.
Was great in that show, and as awful as the magician was, she was wonderful. And I don't know if it was a crush, but I certainly liked her a lot. I thought she was great, and I could see why Frosty would come to life for her.
Yeah, it was a full-on crush for me. Yeah. She was adventurous. I mean, she'd get on a freight train and just take off.
Right. What kid does that? Holy cow.
She was blonde. It's like, wow, that's good too. She had the Rankin and Bass big eyes.
Yeah.
And it was like, what are you trying to do? I've got a crush on Karen. This is probably not all that healthy, but got to start somewhere.
Sure.
Cartoon character will work for me, but yes,
when you're that age, sure. I mean, why not, right?
Absolutely. Well, and so that, I guess it's pretty obvious, Dave, when I ask you who your favorite June Foray character was.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to say Rocky the Squirrel.
Rocky. Yeah. Now that said, you know, there's all of the Jay Ward stuff that she did, you know, as critical, and I know she did Warner Brothers, Merry Melodies stuff, but as critical as Mel Blanc was to that, the Looney Tunes, June Foray was equally critical and essential to everything that Jay Ward done. He was her Michael Jordan. She was his Michael Jordan.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, who didn't love Boris and Natasha, right?
Yeah.
So that's another character that I didn't like Natasha as much as I liked Rocky.
Right.
You know, I didn't connect with her, but did I think that was just a marvelous vocal characterization? And of course, it was exaggerated accent, you know, Russian accent, but it was
right.
It was so
darling.
Yes,
darling.
So fun.
Love that. Oh well, I see. For me, it was Witch Hazel.
Okay.
Just because she, for one, I'm a sucker for any actress that has a great cackle. Billy Hayes, of course, the greatest cackle in the history of entertainment. That's Witchy Poo, for those of you who don't know.
Let's just say Margaret Hamilton, Billy Hayes, and June Foray.
I agree. I think, and that's going to start a whole nother debate, Dave. Maybe I should go. Who is the better cackle, Hamilton or Hayes?
No, that's tough. I mean, as lauded as Hamilton was for her work on The Wizard of Oz, I have a soft spot for Hayes, Billy Hayes.
Right. Let's see. Oh, Gary Carpenter reminds us that she did Ursula from George of the Jungle. There were two of them, right? There was twins, weren't they?
I don't remember.
I should be the expert. Okay. Let's see. Here's one I'd like to look at, and that is from M. Brennan, 459. Once read that Mel Blanc had it in his contract that on WB projects, he was the only one to get on-screen credit. Is that true? Uncle Google, is it true? That's definitely one to look up.
I don't think it's true. I saw that comment. I don't think it's true, just based on the fact that I recall seeing multiple artists attributed on some of those Looney Tunes cartoons along with Mel Blanc. So now there certainly may have been something written into his contract in terms of how that billing was to be, but to exclude all other voice actors, that doesn't sound like Mel Blanc to me.
If he wasn't doing them all anyway.
Right. unless he was doing them all, and then only one credit is needed.
Well, of course, he was not Elmer Fudd. That was, come on, Dave.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Come on, people. Well, again, there was no shortage of talent when it came to these companies making this stuff. Let's see, what do we got here? Another great one from John. He remembers crying when Frosty melted away, when the girl, who we know as Karen, cried. Yes, I cried for Karen too. That was part of also what kind of made me go, oh, I'm in love with her because she's got a heart. Yeah. That's pretty bizarre. I know. Well, Ursula was pretty fun to look at too. So there I go. There I go off of my cartoon binge. But yeah, so again, this has been fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed checking out these lost tidbits.
Pat, I'm just so glad you found them. I want you to spend more time going through your hard drives, because I have a hunch that we may have material for, well, first off, I got to ask you, are these now going to, I know the plan was to incorporate them into live streams, but are you going to make them available as standalones too, so folks can watch them without having to soldier through our chatter?
Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing, actually.
Yeah,
but
I would encourage it, just because I think there's value in the long form content like what we have today, but also just being able to watch it. And this is, how I found your channel is, I love the fact that, it's a pretty low commitment level. To watch a video on your channel takes about 1 to 2 minutes of my time. And I love that. That's perfect sometimes.
It was the idea was for it to be an hors d'oeuvre rather than the full meal. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't care for that so much.
Yeah. You know what? That's why we have these. That's why we do the live streams and the compilations. But there are moments when folks only have a moment, and your videos, and this is why I've always been a huge advocate of the stuff that you do over here on this channel. No one does it better.
Are you talking to me?
I'm just talking. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Talking to
Earpiece.
you.
Made my earpiece come out. It's like, no one? Wow. Well, coming from the best, the titan of nostalgic classic TV loving, that's a big compliment. And I sure appreciate that, Dave. You've certainly been there to support me and everyone else that comes under your wing.
Yeah, look
And
at the huge support you've had tonight. I mean, the whole live stream has been, people have come and gone, but you've had 20 plus people the entire evening here hanging out. Just great conversation. It's been incredible. And here's what I love. They love this stuff as much as you and I do, right? And when we don't know the answer to something, they're the first ones to provide it.
exactly. And we're the first ones to admit it, right?
Yeah.
You asked me a question a minute ago, which was, am I going to release these separately? And the answer is, of course, yes. I wouldn't make you do that. I wouldn't make you watch this whole thing. But I kind of thought it would be a fun idea to debut them on
I think it's a great way to do it. It's fun to have the premieres here and to have you introduce them and for us to get to talk a little bit about the characters or the actors, the talented people that we're doing the voices behind them. This is a phenomenal way to premiere these lost episodes of the Golden Age of TV.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I thought so. And they all show up on my season 4 playlist if you're going to want to look for them. I'll be doing that tomorrow.
Yay. But
I'm thinking for next week, if I don't really want to make a commitment to the following Wednesday until I've landed my guests.
Yes.
But my guests, I'm hoping, will be the two gentlemen, or as Dave calls them, the Batman and Robin of nostalgic radio.
Oh, man. Are you going to get both BK and Alan?
That's the plan.
You know what? Wow.
So
I've been trying to get folks to listen to that podcast, that bionic podcast that Barry does. I know it's great to listen to him live, but Barry, my apologies to you, sir. I know you're in the chat. I don't watch you live because I love that bionic podcast that comes to my podcast player, but I also catch it sometimes on YouTube as well. And he just does such great stuff. I can't wait for you to get him on and have him. I loved when we all three of us got together for Star Trek, but then to be able to bring Alan on board, that will be awesome.
Right. And they are so good together. It's, again, my thought was, and I think Barry was like, why would you have me on this side? And I'm thinking now, Barry and Alan, for that matter, we're talking about voice talent here.
Yeah.
Voice talent. Guess what? BK on the air. You guys are voice talent, and they're very humble. So they won't, I'm going to pour it on.
they're not neither of those guys are, guys that said to themselves, hey, I think I'll start a podcast, or hey, I think I'll start a YouTube channel. These are seasoned, grizzled, hardened, if you will, veterans of radio that, they're titans of their industry. And it is really cool if you're going to be able to.
Well, I know Alan's hardened, but BK,
I think father of what, 3 or 4 girls, he's probably not.
Yeah. Don't get him started on politics. But BK, he's just a big old teddy bear. And so they mesh perfectly. And again, as I start to close this out, the one reason, again, why I wanted to have them on is because they're voice talent. And the thing that I know about working on talent, because I've put some hours in on music, and there I must say, I might say I had some natural ability. I might say that. A lot of it was just hard work, but there was some natural. But when it comes to voice actors and radio personalities, and my father-in-law, as a matter of fact, is very, very prominent, or was in the spots and radio of the 70s. That's a natural talent, folks. That's something that you are born with. I think Mel and June were born with these voices that could take on these roles, and of course, then they work with it. But for me, it's a God-given gift. And
talent gets you in the door, right? But it's the Pat, and this holds true for you and Barry, Alan, anybody that. Then it's the hard work,
right?
You get the talent. That's a blessing, a gift from God. But after that, you've got to do the work, put in the hours. And I know you did, and I'm certain Barry and Alan did as well.
Yes, and the fact that they love their work and look forward to it every weekend is just, it's awesome. I just love those guys to death. They've been a huge help to me getting my name out there, and now that they've got you as a fan, I think it's makes sense to have them come on and do. It's going to be Dawes Butler and Jim Cummings,
two other legends in the industry.
I think we've heard of them.
Yeah,
and so that should be fun, and maybe it'll be next week. I'm probably going to have to pre-record because Alan, I know, is a very, very heavy schedule, but we'll see. I'll keep you all informed. And so with that, let's wrap this one up. Dave, what do you say?
Put a bow on it. It's been a good one, though. I'm so glad you found these videos and that you allowed me to hang out for the very first unveiling.
Yes, and it is. It was like I said, Geraldo Rivera, only there was something in the vault, right? Well, okay then. On that note, I bid you all a fond farewell and have a great weekend. And thanks for joining me, Dave. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Pat. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye now.